Hi everybody. In this video you're going to learn how to draw a map of the globe. And that is, if somebody hands you a blank ball, like a baseball or something, and a pen, you'll be able to draw a globe on that ball. It's sort of like learning geography from the top down, and that's what motivated me. I'm a top-down kind of guy, and so I wanted to know where things are on the earth, and I decided to figure out a method for memorizing where things are and be able to draw a map of the globe just from memory. My method is three steps. First, you divide the globe into 24 pieces and number them 1 to 24. Second, you memorize what's in each piece. So now you have a list of 24 places on Earth, and you memorize those 24. And then the third thing is you learn to draw a map of each piece. So you take each of the 24 pieces and you draw a map showing the contents of that piece. Now, since it's a top-down approach, you start quick and dirty and coarse. You don't have to have these maps very accurate, and then later you can add refinements. So here's how you go about dividing a globe into 24 pieces. Start with a plain old piece of paper. Draw a horizontal line across the middle of it. You can use a ruler or not, doesn't matter. That will be the equator. That'll be the complete equator running all the way around the Earth. So it's 0 degrees of latitude. Next thing is you divide it into 6 pieces. So easy way is you pick what looks like the middle, cut it in half, and then you got to divide each of these into 2 pieces. So you do thirds like this. Now the entire equator is 360 degrees, so you've divided it into 6 60-degree chunks. Now let's choose 60 degrees of latitude, and so that'll be 30 degrees above the equator and 30 degrees below the equator. And to make them about equal, you make that line so that it's about the same distance as one of your sixths. So you get a square. Something like that. And then you run those 30-degree latitudes all the way across the page. And then draw in all of the meridians. And you have this. Now you have 12 chunks. That's half of the 24 we need. And what we're missing is everything north of 30 degrees and everything south of 30 degrees south. So we add triangles. And these to each one of these pieces. And make them a little taller than an equilateral triangle. If you make an equilateral triangle, then they'd make your globe flat, which you don't want. So make them a little bit taller than equilateral triangles. Make them about like that. Then you go ahead and make 12 of those. One on top of each of the lines. And you get something like that. So that is our grid of the globe, 24 pieces. 12 triangles, 12 rectangles, and we number them left to right, top to bottom, 1 through 24. So I'll write those numbers in here on the tops. So this is the the first step, identifying 24 regions of the Earth delimited by a meridian every 60 degrees and by parallels of latitude every 30 degrees for the bottom and then 60 degrees for those triangles. So the latitude is easy to figure out on this because you have 0 degrees for the equator, and then you have 30 degrees for this line, 90 degrees for this line. So if you want to estimate within 10 degrees, you'd have to just divide this vertical line in thirds, and you get 10 degrees. If you divide this line to the pole in thirds, you get 20 degrees, but then you can estimate half of that to get 10 degrees pretty easily. So estimating latitude within 10 degrees is pretty easy. Longitude, both this line and this line are 0 degrees longitude because the Earth is really, we wrap this around to make our equator complete, and those two meridians coincide. They're both at 0. You can see how we could fold this up to make a globe, roughly. So the meridians, or the degrees of longitude, are 0, counting from 0 up to 180 in the middle from both ends. This is 60 degrees east longitude, 120 east, 180 east. And then starting here at 0, this is 60 degrees west, and 120 west, 180 west. So to estimate longitude, say in this box, you know it goes from 60 west to 120 west, and if you divide that into thirds, you're going to get, that's 20 degrees at a shot, so you go 60, 80, 100, 120. In this one it would be 120, 140, 160, 180. Or in this one it would be 0, 20, 40, 60. So this is how you would learn how to estimate latitude and longitude for any place on Earth. Once you know what's in each one of these boxes or triangles, and imagine how it looks in there, you can pretty much place any place on Earth you know about, and once you have it placed in one of these regions, you can go ahead and estimate latitude and longitude to within about 10 degrees, depending on how good you are at drawing your maps in there. So there's the framework. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is something you can do while you're waiting for a bus or walking around, going for a walk, and that is to memorize the contents of all 24 of those regions. And that's a fun exercise, I think. What you need, or what I used, I made this laminated list of the 24 regions with their contents. I kept it in my little pocket calendar, and I'd use it to just drill myself and memorize all 24 items. It's fun and doesn't take too long, and once you have it, then that's what you use for reference. So here's the contents of my little card. On one side I have these 12, numbered 1 through 12, and you can pause the video now and copy these 12 down, and then here's the second page, number 13 through 24. You can pause the video and copy these down. And then, once you have your list made, you can drill yourself and memorize what's in each one. That's step number 2. Step number 3 is drawing a map for each one of those pieces and then memorizing how to draw the map. So you know that numbers 1 through 6 are triangles, and number 7 through, what, 18 are rectangles, and you know that 19 through 24 are triangles again, upside down. And so you kind of picture each one, you know whether it's a rectangle or a triangle, and then you draw the contents and memorize how to draw it. And you can use any source for that. If you can have a globe, just look at the globe and have your little drawing down and just draw them from memory. Now one is probably the most complex of the bunch. That's got Europe, North Africa, it's got the Mediterranean, it's got the Black Sea, it's got the Caspian Sea, the Baltic Sea. So that one I still haven't got down very well. I mean, I can sketch it out. I can sketch out the Nordic Peninsula, then the Black Sea, and I know it runs off the edge here. And then I know the Mediterranean has this big arm, which is the Adriatic, and has a big bump in it where Carthage used to be. And then you got the Black Sea in there, and the Caspian Sea, and the Aral Sea. So number one looks something like that. But from then on, it's a lot easier. Number two, for example, is just a triangle with sunglasses. That's the way I draw it. Just like that. And those happen to be Kazakhstan and Mongolia, believe it or not. But if you look at my list, you won't see Kazakhstan or Mongolia even mentioned. My number two contains China, Russia, and Afghanistan. And so we have Russia occupying the top above Mongolia and Kazakhstan. And you have China roughly occupying most of the space below. Now, Afghanistan is in the picture because it's sitting in this corner along with all the other stands, pretty much all of them. It's got Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and a piece of Pakistan is in there too. So that's number two. Number three is kind of easy. It's got three things that helps me memorize number three. It's got Kamchatka, which is just a peninsula here, and Korea, which is a peninsula down there, and Japan, which is an island in the middle. So that's number three. Number four is pretty much just Alaska. And so you can draw Alaska pretty easily. It's just a thing that looks like a fist sticking out with a really skinny thumb, which is the Aleutian chain. And then it's Alaska and the west coast of Canada and the United States, which goes down the right side, just scooping off part of it. And five is the United States and Canada, and so on. And so you sketch them in there. Now you can do it more accurately as you refine your technique. So to do an accurate map, I made a grid on the computer, and then I actually drew in the 10-degree lines in all the boxes. So here you can see I have every 10 degrees. Then, using Atlas, I could accurately draw the outlines of the contents of each box, since I had the 10-degree markers. And then I just went in and erased all the interior grid lines, and I ended up with just the outlines of the land masses. So you can go to that amount of work or not at your choice, or you can go to more work. And then, once I had that, then my number one, for example, I can get an accurate picture of Europe and the Mediterranean, North Africa. Number two, I already showed you how that looks. It's just a pair of sunglasses on a triangle, and so on. So what I got by making this picture is this folded up globe. And since I made my triangles a little too close to being equilateral, the top and bottom are a little too flat. So if I did it again, I'd make them longer. But you get a rough, you get a pretty good representation of the globe, all 24 pieces. And each piece, if you look at it to learn how to draw it, is not simple, but it's easy to learn how to draw a particular piece that fits in one rectangle or one square. Now, there are some things about these that make it easier to memorize, like I've already mentioned number 2, you can think of it as the 2 sunglasses, or you can think of it as the 2 big areas above and below, Russia and China. Toss in all the stands, Afghanistan and whatnot. So that makes that easy to memorize. 3 has these 3 pieces, Kamchatka, Korea, Japan. A couple of interesting ones are number 9. That's the Philippines all by itself. So this is piece number 9. Nothing in there but the Philippines over on the left side. Same with number 10. Nothing in there but Hawaii right up there. So 9 and 10 are easy to memorize and easy to learn to draw. All of the ones from 19 to 24, which are these bottom ones, they all have Antarctica in them. So you know that the last 6, you have Antarctica as a piece. There aren't a whole lot of other contents of those bottoms. In fact, there are 2 of them, number 20, number 22, that don't have anything in them except Antarctica. The rest of them will have, like 21 has got a piece of Australia, Tasmania, New Zealand. So those are the 3 things in 21. And there are 2 things in 24. I mean 23. This is 23, just Chile and Argentina. And 24 just has one other thing, and that's Uruguay. Interesting that South America gets cut into 6 chunks. And so in my list you're going to learn most of the countries of South America and which chunk they fit in, because we're identifying them by country. Africa, on the other hand, only gets cut into 3 chunks, and so we don't identify, well, there are actually 5 chunks. 6, I guess there's 6 chunks, depending on how much you count. So in chunk number 1 we have North Africa, and chunk number 6 is kind of an interesting one. It's got the most diversity, in my view. It's my favorite. It's Greenland, Iceland, England, Spain, Morocco. And you wouldn't think that those would get clumped together, but they are. They all land in the same spot. On my list I didn't mention Iceland, because that's the way I memorized it to begin with. But I like the sound of Greenland, Iceland, England, Spain, Morocco. And so there you see you have a little bit of Africa, that is Morocco, and a little bit of Europe. You got Spain and England. But as for Africa, it shows up in number 12. This one I think of as my automotive one. GM, MG. And those initials stand for, the first G is Guyana, which is this chunk out of South America, and the rest of it's in Africa. So G, and then you got M, which is Mauritania, Mali, and Ghana. Now there's some more in there besides those, but that gives you an idea of what's in chunk number 12. Guyana, Mauritania, Mali, and Ghana. There's also the Ivory Coast and Sierra Leone and a bunch of other ones in there. And then the same with the interior of Africa. This number 7 starts with S, so to me Sahara and Saudi Arabia are what's in 7. Although it's more than Saudi Arabia, it's the Arabian Peninsula and the Sahara. And then 13, the lucky or unlucky number, if you want to think of it, is Sub-Saharan Africa and Madagascar. That's all that's in there. And 19 is just South Africa, and of course it's also got Antarctica because it's one of the big numbers, and so on. So 8 is India and Southeast Asia, and so on. Now, to estimate latitude and longitude, I've already told you how to think about that, and that is you've learned to draw these maps, and then when you're given a place you want to locate, you imagine where it is on the piece, and you think about the grid and use the the clues that I described earlier to be able to calculate it. So that's the method, and you make your list, memorize it, draw your grid, and then practice drawing maps inside of the grid. And you can make it as accurate or as detailed as you want. And then when somebody hands you an egg and says decorate that for Easter, you can take a pen and draw a globe on it and be pretty accurate. So I had fun with this. I hope you did, and I hope you will have more fun with it. And thank you for watching.